In this episode, we're talking about how to go to a bar alone, have the confidence to start a conversation with a stranger, and ultimately make friends, all while doing it without looking creepy. I promise it's possible. Let's go. Warning, this video is not for you if you are hoping to start a romantic relationship or have a hookup at a bar. This video is strictly to make a friend, strictly platonic, and that is the entire lens that I'm giving all of these tips and insights from. Okay, so a little backstory. I was put on an assignment lately. I was part of an article for Bloomberg that was about how to become a better barfly, which is essentially somebody that can go to a bar, strike up conversation, and have a great time just interacting with strangers. And for part of the assignment, I decided to go to a bar myself and test all of these methods that I'm about to share with you today to make sure they do in fact work. And I'm here to tell you good news. They did. We're going to go through all of it right now. You see, because what I want to start with is the fear that we have interacting in public when we're out by ourselves. And I talk about a fear because we all, to some degree, have a fear of rejection. We have a fear of what other people think about us. Do I look awkward? Am I awkward? Do I look creepy? Are they going to think I'm weird? What if I'm so introverted? What if I just don't know what to say and I'm just socially the worst ever, right? We get all these swirling thoughts in our head. So right now, I want to share some actual research that's been done about rejection so we can put all these lies that we've been telling ourselves to bed right before we even go out to a bar, okay? The Gottman Institute did some research that studied people's perceptions of what would happen if they decided to strike up a conversation with a stranger. And before doing so, they found that 97% of test subjects believed that if they decided to start talking to a stranger, they would be rejected. Okay. So then they followed through and actually had the test subjects do exactly this. Wouldn't you believe the craziest data came back? It was the exact opposite of what they thought would happen. The exact opposite, meaning 97% of the time when someone decided to strike up conversation with a stranger, the stranger engaged back. So I say that because we actually now have data and proof that our fear of rejection is, for the most part, unfounded. Now, I'm hearing it right now. What if I'm ugly? What if, all of these things are coming in? And I just want to address this right now. We all may have had a bad experience before where somebody did reject us. But it's important to note that one person or a handful of people rejecting us is not the whole of humanity. So we want a chance of proving that we're a great friend. So we also need to be willing to give other people that chance too. And if somebody does reject you, I don't think that says as much about you as it does about the person and where they are or are not at in life. I mean, ultimately, if somebody does choose to reject us, whatever capacity that is, that's a great data point. And ultimately, why would we want to be with people that reject us? We don't want to. So that's almost a blessing in disguise because we can be like, okay, cool, not for me. Now I can pivot and put my efforts and attention elsewhere. Let's address but I'm so awkward meeting new people. Okay. Fun fact for you, I go across the country speaking about how to build rich friendships. And every single talk I give, I ask the audience who in the room feels awkward when meeting new people. Every single time, every hand in the room goes up. So let me dispel a myth right now. You're not awkward, okay? We are not awkward. The concept of meeting new people in itself is an awkward experience, but everyone is mutually feeling it together, okay? So now we've got that lie of I'm too awkward or they'll reject me out of our heads and we're ready, we're locked in because we're choosing, we wanna build incredible friendships and we can use the bar as a place to start that. So now that we've discussed all of that, let's jump right into some do's and don'ts to do when you're at a bar, okay? Here's some do's, and these are honestly layups the majority of the time. A great way to start a conversation with a stranger is start with a compliment. Could be anything. I love your sneakers. Hey, I love your hat. Hey, I love your glasses. Hey, I love your bag. It's a great way to start a conversation because you're telling someone up front, I see you and I feel like you matter. And I wanted to address something that I saw in you. Nobody is like, ew, go away whenever you give them a compliment, right? And if they are, again, that speaks to the character or maybe lack thereof of a person and not necessarily as much to you, right? So start with a compliment because it's incredibly disarming and again, shows people that from the outset, you notice them and you want them to know that you see them. Okay, so once you start with a compliment, you can easily jump into a conversation. And maybe you're clamming up right now. Here's how, okay, right? Just like this. I love your hat. I'm Zoe, by the way. What's your name? Boom, now you're in there. And if you're open for conversation, then we want to open our body language. This could be a handshake. This could be making eye contact. This could be taking AirPods out of our ears and making sure people know, hey, I'm here to chat if you're open to it. And of course, getting the good old phone out of our face. These are all do's. Make sure that you appear open and potentially ready for a dialogue. Okay, another do. Go first. Don't wait for somebody else to come up to you or notice you because you have the power and autonomy to be that person for somebody else. And that's really a gift. When somebody else goes first, you're giving someone else the gift to go second. So when we go first, also, this shows that we are becoming the friend that we ultimately want to find in our lives. We don't want a friend that's always just waiting for us to, initiate. We want somebody else that will also mutually initiate. So really, this is all about embodying and becoming the friend that we're looking for and interacting as that while you're even talking to strangers. Okay, here's another do in my book. Instead of talking about the weather or getting into that, familiar rhythm and habit, break the script and ask a question that shows genuine curiosity. Here's a couple for you, okay? What brings you here tonight? Or another easy one is talking about your drinks. What do you recommend I drink tonight? Yours looks so good. Something like that. And you can notice that even as I'm saying that, I'm smiling, right? I'm not just like, what are you drinking tonight? I'm not sounding accusatory. I'm not monotone. I'm not angry. I'm trying to give warm body language and match my tone with that so that people feel I'm disarming, ultimately. And here's another pro tip. I've actually initiated with a little bit of vulnerability before. So after giving a compliment, I've even started like this before. Listen, it is the weekend and I need to hear some good news. Tell me, what's something awesome that happened to you this week? Now, that might feel uncomfortable, okay? And I'm not saying it's for everybody, but it could be something to try sometime. If you're feeling like the person who you even just gave a compliment to complimented you back, and there's already kind of like eye contact going on, and you're both showing that you're open for a conversation, that could be a great gateway question that could ultimately lead you into having a deeper conversation. And I say that because it is possible to get in a very deep conversation without being inebriated at a bar, okay? Genuinely, because this happens to me all the time. In fact, here's a video that I just recently did on how to ask better questions and the 15 best questions, in my opinion, to go from small talk to a deep conversation. So check it out right there. And obviously, when you're in a dialogue, make sure that you're maintaining eye contact with the person. Now, don't stare deeply into their soul, but don't be averting your eyes away from them. And I'll talk about that in a second. You also want to shift your body towards the person if you're having a conversation with them. You know how when you're at a bar, you're sitting side by side, shoulder to shoulder. I always like to turn a little bit more towards the person so that my body is open towards them because, again, it communicates, even with your body language, that you intentionally care about what they're saying and want to know more. Obviously, if someone's just like looking at you like this and kind of shifting their gaze between you and something else, that's not going to read to you as they're very interested. So that's why it's important for you to maybe start that, and someone could end up mirroring that as a result because they hear and see that you're interested in having a conversation with them. Here's another do. If you're learning about the person you're interacting with, such as their hobbies, things they like to do, travel, anything, feel free to ask their advice on something that could be relevant to what they're discussing. So let's say that somebody is really into pickleball. I could just start saying, no way, I am just starting to get into it, or, oh my gosh, everybody I know is getting into pickleball. Tell me, what's one reason I should start it? Or what advice do you have for me? Something like that. And I say asking for advice questions because when you ask for someone's advice, we read that as a strong compliment because somebody cares enough to know what we think about something. And also, when you ask for somebody's advice, it almost creates a buy-in where they now want to be part of the journey and hear what happens with the outcome of the advice that they may have given you. So I always love saying, ask advice if there's something that you're even curious about. Not saying you're necessarily going to take it, but feel free to open dialogue by asking advice or something. And when you hear someone giving a little bit of insight, be on the lookout for, ooh, I actually want to learn more about that, which goes into the don'ts. You might be watching this video or listening to this episode thinking to yourself, man, I really like where we're going with this, but ultimately, I don't really know where to even start when it comes to building rich friendships or getting out of my rut of loneliness. And if that's you, I got you. Because now we have a free downloadable guide, which is the 5 steps you need to build rich friendships. It's the springboard that launches you into every other facet of your life in your own mission to destroy your loneliness. It's the exact steps that I, along with now hundreds of others, have used to destroy their loneliness and build the friendships that they've always dreamed of and always wanted. And now it could be your turn too. So make sure you check out the link in the description or the show notes to download that guide for free right now. 5 steps to build rich friendships. Hey, by the way, I think you're worth it. Back to the show. Do not get in a conversation if you genuinely are just trying to do it to pass the time and don't actually care about the person in front of you. Now, in case you're thinking, well, how will I know if I care about the person if I haven't even talked to them yet? No, what I'm talking about is if you come to a bar and you're ultimately just hoping to be by yourself and enjoy a drink and that's it, cool. Then stay with that. We want to make sure that we're intentional going into this. So you do not want to just randomly engage in a conversation to pass the time and feel like you're wasting both of your time, because that's where small talk happens. And then it becomes more frustrating than life-giving. And I kind of just talked about the side to side, but if someone's back is turned towards you or their torso is turned away, they may already be showing with their body language that they're not open to a conversation. That could be the signal that they're giving, and you want to pay attention to that. So similarly, if someone is intently watching a game and their gaze is not towards you, do not try and interrupt that to start a conversation unless you're hoping to interact with them about that game that's being watched. Because a lot of people do come to bars, right, to watch games, and that's fine. But if you're coming to the bar to not watch a game and start a conversation, then that's not the crowd you're looking for. Okay, another don't, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, but do not put your head in your phone and try to escape. And I know it's going to feel incredibly uncomfortable at first because we're so used to just whipping that thing out to pass the time, right? We're just head in our phones. Oh, nobody's paying attention to me. Let's just pretend I'm texting somebody. Let's scroll on social media. But when we put our phones down, are showing through body language we're open to a conversation and we're open to an interaction and a dialogue. And I promise it's worth it. The goal is you want to be as open as possible, open-minded and open in your body language. So put that phone down and try your best to avoid it. It looks more natural without you being on your phone. It feels more unnatural, but it looks more natural to an observer. Here's another don't. If you start going into a conversation and you're realizing that you're about to hit a topic, or you're already in a topic where somebody adamantly disagrees with you, do not engage in an argument. It is never worth it to prove that you're right to a stranger. That gets you nothing. That gets them nothing as well. The best way to maintain a healthy level of dialogue, even if it's something you disagree with, literally, this is the best sentence ever. I'm serious. Tell me more. Tell me more, because you want to know how on earth they came to that conclusion if it's something you disagree with, or you want to know because you're so curious, you've never heard this before, how they are thinking about this. Tell me more is such a bridge building question and can open the dialogue in massive ways, because even through that, you're showing extreme curiosity and, honestly, intentionality too. If you are realizing that you're disagreeing with somebody, saying, tell me more, can be an incredible gift, because ultimately that humanizes a person, because they're maybe able to articulate why they've come to a conclusion, and it's actually much closer to how you think about something than you would have thought otherwise. It allows empathy to take place and for you to better understand their perspective. Okay, don't interrogate. Pacing is really important in this. And I say that because the temptation is obviously going to be to hear somebody answer and ask another question. Hear them answer and ask another question, because you might be nervous, right? Especially if you haven't done this before. But silence is actually okay. Truly. A little bit of silence is actually okay, because there are people who like to think before they speak. Shouldn't all of us? Yeah. A lot of people want to be thoughtful in their responses, and that silence gives someone the ability to catch up and then potentially ask you a question. And I've made this mistake so many times because I'm so curious that it comes across as almost overzealous. So I've needed to learn to hold back and kind of just leave space. And it might feel a little uncomfortable, right, with silence, but silence is actually super. Now, if it's minutes on end, that's different. But you can still have a question and hold back for about 4 seconds before asking it if they're not asking you anything. And that's how you can gauge it to move forward. And another part of that is don't continue to press. Now, I'm talking about people when you're starting a conversation and it just feels like you're pulling teeth, like they are not engaging in the conversation. If that's the case, don't continue to press, because these could be the type of people that just came to the bar to be by themselves, relax, have a drink, and they're not trying to engage in conversation. And that's totally fine, right? That's not everyone's goal is the same as ours, but we're trying to find people who are on the same path and have the same goal as us to actually have a good conversation at a bar. And I just want to end with some encouragement, okay? Because as adults, the bar is a great place to have a conversation. Now, it's a place where things can get wild and out of hand too, but a bar is a place where adults meet from every walk of life. So we can use it as a prime opportunity to potentially build a rich friendship with a great drink in hands. So we don't need to be afraid of it anymore. That's the goal of this video, and I hope that you feel a little bit more encouraged and empowered having gone through all these things. I believe in you, and I believe that you are worth building incredibly rich friendships.